In spring of 2019, this little anime called Fruits Basket came out and started doing a podcast on it, and somehow the podcast became popular, and somehow Fruits Basket became my favorite anime of 2019, along with Vinland Saga. Now, spring 2020, Fruits Basket is back with a season 2. We got done watching this first episode. We did a podcast on it on the Bento channel, so if you want to go and watch that, you can. But I am going to be giving my own personal impressions based off what I've seen so far. I think this series is going to get more and more popular. I already saw it. In the first season, I never really saw people talk about it much week to week. Now that season 2 is out, and you see more and more people start to watch this series and get hooked on it, and people are actually really enjoying it. I think a lot of people will be surprised on this first episode. This first episode really only focused on Motoko, who is kind of a secondary character, and Yuki, who is one of our main characters. But it is really interesting because based off what we saw in the last 2 episodes of season 1, you'd think, oh, well, you know, the first episode of this season 2 is going to be super dramatic. But really, the first episode is not at all. When it comes to Yuki, his character gets a little bit of development, which I thought was really cool. We actually get to see how Yuki has changed as a person. This is a continuation from the last episode of season 1, where we see him basically go to Toru and be like, hey, I'm gonna try now. You've started to really change me, and so I'm gonna show you how much I've changed. In episode 1 of season 2, we see that change mostly. Yuki is able to smile. He seems less put off by the presence of others in many ways. And I think that's really cool because we've seen how a lot of characters have changed and developed, but for Yuki, and especially Kyo, we haven't seen it that much. So seeing it with Yuki, it's something really special to see. Also, really surprising thing is that Toru Honda isn't really in this episode much. She's sorta in the background. She doesn't really do much in this episode, which makes sense because she's kind of moved out of the way for this episode to focus more on Motoko, and Motoko is a really cool character. I actually really enjoy Motoko after this first episode, and that's really just because they've really humanized the way she thinks, and they've gone to great lengths to make you understand just why she's so obsessed over this Yuki boy, or I guess as I should say, Yuki boy. While Motoko, a lot of the times, I think is fairly abrasive as a person, and not really much as a character, but definitely a person, Motoko in reality doesn't really like herself. She doesn't have a lot of self-confidence. And I think what she sees in Yuki is the person that she wants to be, and therefore that's why Motoko idolizes Yuki. Yuki is everything that represents the Motoko that she wants to be, even though she can't be that. And I think a big part of Motoko's character will eventually be her accepting herself and accepting that, yeah, these other people that you idolize, sure, there are qualities and traits that they have in them that you would like. But at the same time, you are you, and you are a very unique person. There is no other person like you. So have a little bit of self-confidence and learn to love yourself a little bit. And I think that's a big part of Motoko's character. And I think it's a very relatable trait as well, because in the first episode, we see her in her room. She doesn't really live in the greatest of places ever, but she's looking in this mirror and she's telling herself she doesn't like the reflection that's looking back at her. She doesn't like the person in the mirror at all. But I think there's a lot to like about Motoko, especially a lot for her to learn about herself. She hasn't figured it all out yet, you know? And with Motoko's self-consciousness and a little bit of shallowness as well, when Yuki goes to smile at her, Motoko is almost really mad at that. She doesn't want Yuki to change because if Yuki changes, who left does she have to idolize? Who left does she have to look up to? Who left does she have to almost live for, I guess, in a way? But at the end of the episode, after she runs off, she's kind of accepted that she likes Yuki finding happiness and being able to smile. And so she appreciates Toru Honda for that, even though she's called Toru evil and this and that. Then we have Machi and Manabe, who are in the student council along with Yuki, and they're quite interesting. What we see of them in the first episode, what we see of the girl, Machi, we first see her on the floor messing with a bunch of these papers, and we don't know why she was messing with a lot of those papers. I assume it's for work-related things in terms of the student council, but at the same time, she seemed to be very suspicious, very shady while doing so. So I could easily see something weird going on there. We'll just say that. Maybe there's a certain mystery or something that we're looking for inside of those notebooks. When she gets caught and goes back to clean it up, she puts it back very, shall we say, not neatly. But she then goes to wake up Manabe. Now, Manabe's sleeping on a couch, and he says to her, "Don't wake me up unless there's aliens." Now, this guy's pretty fun, actually, because at one point, he even very comically is presented as a cowboy, which I thought was hilarious. But he's into, like, Super Sentai and stuff. He's kind of very, almost free-spirited in a sense. But he's pretty interesting. He's kind of cool. I don't really much to think about these characters other than that there's obviously something that we just don't know about them yet. And of course, you know, this is Fruits Basket. All of their mysteries will be uncovered eventually and soon enough. I have no doubts about that. Just some small things I really enjoyed, though. I enjoyed the comedy in this episode. This episode was really lighthearted, actually, for many different reasons. At the beginning of the episode, Shigure, he says that he's really excited to see all of this drama and romance play out, and Kyo's like, "What are you talking about?" And Shigure just starts yelling at him. He's like, "I know rocks less dense than you." And then he tells Toru that Kyo has no potential. Shigure is just a really funny guy. There's also this other great part at the beginning of the episode where Yuki and Kyo are fighting, and Toru goes, "Please, you two fighting is dangerous," and she holds up just this hot iron, and Kyo's like, "So are you." She almost hit Yuki with it. It was really funny. Toru is just the best. She really is. Also, at the beginning of this episode, Yuki is called lame, and by the end, Manabe tells him that Yuki isn't lame at all. He's actually pretty interesting, and so that really helped him appreciate Manabe and appreciate himself a little bit more, which is pretty cool, I think, because, you know, Yuki doesn't have much self-esteem, much like Motoko. And there's a nice little conversation at the end of the episode between Yuki and Toru, where Yuki is like, "I'll just continue to live on, you know, this life where I'll be hurt and healed by these little insignificant remarks," which is just so true when you're younger, you know? Like, even happens to me a lot of the times where just the littlest of things will get under your skin. But also, it's the littlest of things that helps you move on from those little things that hurt your feelings that don't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. So I really enjoyed that line because it's very human. It's very real. It's something everybody experiences, I think. Because everybody has, you know, a certain tolerance to things. Everybody has their weaknesses and their strengths. And everybody gets over their weaknesses eventually, and they develop new weaknesses, and they develop new strengths, and they lose strengths. This continues the trend that Fruits Basket is basically a collection of cool life stories and cool life lessons, and I think there's a lot of wiseness to a lot of these characters, and I think there's a lot to learn from just watching Fruits Basket. And not necessarily learn in the sense that, you know, you'll learn how to do something like, I don't know, like something. I'm not talking about like a tool or like a skill. I'm really talking about learn as in things to ponder, and then when you question a lot of things, you learn about yourself or simply other people in your life. And I think that's the beauty of Fruits Basket. It just makes you kind of self-reflect a lot of the times. And from that self-reflection, you can learn a couple things, and it makes you think. And sure, it's maybe not the most in-depth writing you'll ever see, and sure, maybe the series isn't perfect in terms of writing all the time, but I think for what Fruits Basket is trying to do, I think it's probably the thought that counts many of the times. And I think that's why Fruits Basket is so special. I think that's why Fruits Basket is so good, despite how some people may not think it's that good, or whatever the criticisms may be. Fruits Basket Season 2 so far, based off my first impressions, is really good. I really enjoyed this first episode. This wasn't the best episode. This was better than episode 4 in season 1, which was the introduction of Kagura. I'm really eager to just get back to watching this. It's one of my highlights of the week, to be honest, during this whole pandemic going around. So we'll see in the next episode if it gets even better. I have a feeling it will. I'm really excited for season 2. I've heard it's really dark and it's only just getting started. So I guess I recommend it if you haven't seen it already, for some reason, if you're watching this video. But if you haven't seen it, go and watch it. It's on Crunchyroll. It's on Funimation. Both the sub and dub are phenomenal. So go check it out. You got no reason not to. It's a classic in its genre. And not only is it a classic in its genre, it's a staple of anime in general. So go and watch it. So with that being said, make sure to subscribe and ring the bell. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it. Comment down below what are your thoughts on Fruits Basket Season 2. I'm eager to hear what you think. Also know that I have a Patreon. We're on the $1 tier and above. You can get access to everything. I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.